In 1995, astronomer Carl Sagan warned of a troubling trend, the glorification of stupidity, where media made it all right not to know anything. Fast forward to today, and Sagan's warning feels prophetic. We live in a world that not only tolerates ignorance but often celebrates it. Being loud, shallow, and proudly uninformed has somehow become a fast track to fame, influence, and even leadership. Think about it. When was the last time deep, nuanced thinking trended on social media? When did a thoughtful debate go viral? Instead, the spotlight is dominated by meaningless personalities and 15-second clips that favor quick laughs over thoughtful insight. Popular culture has undergone a systemic shift. Empty entertainment is rewarded over intellectual substance, clever memes replace logical discourse, and fast, flashy content is valued more than reflective conversation. Public dialogue once involved debate, dissent, and the careful wrestling of ideas. Now it's a battlefield of slogans, snap reactions, and short-form distractions. We scroll past philosophy to watch pranks. We skip expert analysis to chase trending audio. The tragic part is that this didn't happen by accident. The modern media environment actively incentivizes shallowness. It teaches us that it's better to be likable than informed, quicker to react with emotion than to respond with reason, and more profitable to be shallow than serious. In a very real sense, stupidity isn't just tolerated, it's monetized, promoted, and glorified. The shift from depth to distraction. How did we get here? The cultural incentives have flipped. Meaningless noise often gets more engagement than meaningful knowledge. On platforms optimized for quick engagement, a sarcastic 15-second video will outperform a nuanced 15-minute explanation almost every time. Viral content favors the outrageous over the thoughtful. The people commanding the most attention today aren't the most insightful. They're the most outrageous. Popular influencers and even public figures have learned that controversy, shock, and oversimplification drive clicks and followers. A dramatic feud between internet personalities will generate far more buzz than a lecture by a Nobel laureate. As one commentator noted, social media algorithms reward hostility and sensationalism over truth. An accurate news report will be buried if a sensationalized falsehood gets more clicks. In short, noise wins out over knowledge in the attention economy. Crucially, this is by design. Social platforms are engineered to maximize our time on site, and they've discovered that nothing does this better than triggering our emotions. Studies find that social media algorithms are designed to amplify whatever keeps us engaged, often content that provokes anger, outrage, or instant agreement. For example, a recent experiment with Twitter's ranking algorithm showed it amplified tweets expressing anger far more than a chronological feed did. In a very real sense, the system doesn't care if a post is true, insightful, or beneficial. It cares if you'll click, react, and share. The result is a media landscape flooded with fast food content, easily consumed, instantly gratifying, and devoid of nutritional value for the mind. Even traditional media and politics have adapted to this shallow playing field. News outlets chase speed and spectacle over accuracy and depth. Complex issues get distilled into flashy headlines and polarizing soundbites. Politicians, noticing what plays well in our reduced attention culture, increasingly act like performers or content creators. Many campaign in memes and catchphrases rather than substantive policy discussions. Governing often takes a backseat to branding. In this climate, leaders are chosen for their camera presence and slogan savvy more than their expertise. We've begun to elect the loudest voices rather than the wisest minds, rewarding those who can package fear or false certainty into 30-second clips that go viral. Anyone daring to speak with nuance or honesty is drowned out by the next outrageous distraction. Anti-Intellectualism, the war on depth. Perhaps the most disturbing symptom of this culture is a rising anti-intellectualism, a mistrust and dismissal of experts and deep thinkers. We don't just ignore intellectuals, we actively mistrust them. Scientists are mocked as out-of-touch nerds, experts are derided as elitists, and intellectual debate is cast as unnecessary or even suspicious. This anti-expert sentiment has measurable effects. A Pew Research poll found that the percentage of Americans expressing a lot of trust in scientists dropped from 87% in early 2020 to just 73% by 2023, while those with little or no trust in scientists more than doubled, 12% to 20%, 27%. In other words, faith in expertise has been eroding. This trend has a long history, but it has accelerated in recent years as populist rhetoric finds electoral advantages in bashing eggheads and experts. Politicians learned that dismissing scientific or scholarly consensus can score easy points with a populace trained to value gut feeling over specialized knowledge. The result is a war on depth in public discourse. The very people who spend their lives understanding complex problems, researchers, doctors, academics, are sidelined for being too serious, too complicated, or, worst of all, not entertaining enough. In their place, the spotlight goes to celebrities and influencers famous for being famous, or to demagogues who simplify issues into black and white caricatures. Anti-intellectualism turns expertise into a liability. Being thoughtful is seen as being elitist. This has grave consequences. When society stops listening to people who base opinions on facts or years of study, it becomes frighteningly easy for misinformation and simplistic narratives to fill the void. The psychology of simplicity. Why shallow sells? Why do shallow ideas thrive while nuance withers? The answer isn't only cultural, it's psychological. In an increasingly chaotic world, simplicity offers comfort and a false sense of control. We face uncertain economies, complex global crises, and information overload on a daily basis. In this storm of complexity, the simple and superficial can feel like a life raft. A quick meme or snarky joke gives instant relief by simplifying a topic or affirming our existing beliefs. It demands nothing from us, no reflection, no challenge, and in return it delivers a hit of amusement or validation. Psychologists refer to the fluency effect. The easier something is to process, the more our brains like it and even believe it. Repeated, easy-to-digest statements create a sense of familiarity and truth, regardless of their accuracy. In short, if it's simple and it feels true, we tend not to question it. Social media feeds this bias by showing us constant streams of easily consumable content that never asks us to slow down or think deeply. Biology plays a role as well. Quick, sensational content hits the brain like junk food. Each like, swipe, or funny clip triggers a tiny dopamine rush in our reward pathways. Our smartphones have become modern-day hypodermic needles, delivering quick hits of validation and distraction on demand. Just as sugary food trains our palate to prefer sweetness, endless bite-sized media trains our brains to crave constant stimulation. Over time, we become addicted to immediacy. We reflexively scroll at the first hint of boredom or stress, seeking that next quick fix of novelty or outrage. And like any addiction, tolerance builds. The more shallow content we consume, the more we need to feel satisfied, and the harder it becomes to appreciate anything slower or more complex. A 3,000-word article or a dense book chapter starts to feel like a burden. Too much effort for a brain accustomed to Twitter posts and TikTok videos. We find ourselves avoiding friction, unconsciously shying away from anything that doesn't offer instant clarity or gratification. This is why humor and outrage dominate our timelines. It's psychologically easier to laugh at a meme or get angry at a headline than it is to grapple with nuanced analysis. Irony becomes a shield against uncomfortable truths. Sarcasm becomes the default tone. It's not that people don't care about serious issues, it's that many are mentally and emotionally exhausted. Shallow content is like a quick energy snack. It gives a brief boost without the heavy lift. But as with subsisting on candy, there's a long-term cost to an all-junk media diet. Our mental muscles for focus, critical thinking, and empathy begin to atrophy. Cultural consequences, a society lost in the shallow end. What does it mean for a society to glorify stupidity and devalue depth? The consequences are dire. Over time, a cultural diet of shallow content produces a generation trained not to think, but to react, not to question but to consume. Young people growing up in this environment get the message loud and clear. Being thoughtful isn't just uncool, it might actually hold you back. They learn that it's safer to play dumb, to be funny and unthreatening, than to be curious and earnest. Intelligence becomes stigmatized as elitist or boring. Many start to hide their intellectual side to fit in, and after a while they may forget it was ever there. This isn't a hypothetical scare story. It's observable. Teachers report that students shy away from difficult topics. Online, any attempt at serious discussion is met with eye rolls or derision. TLDR, too long, didn't read. The cultural message: keep it light, keep it surface level. Our educational institutions feel the ripple effects. In a market-driven view of education, disciplines that encourage critical thinking and deep understanding, philosophy, history, literature, the arts, are increasingly devalued and defunded. Why study the humanities or pure sciences, some argue, if they don't directly lead to high-paying jobs? As a result, universities have seen significant drops in students pursuing these fields. In the US, the number of humanities degrees awarded declined nearly 25% between 2012 and 2020, reflecting this shift toward practical, often meaning lucrative majors. Courses that teach how to think, question, and understand human complexity are cut back, while career-oriented training is emphasized. We tell the next generation to focus on what makes money, not what fosters meaning, and then we wonder why critical thinking seems to be in short supply. Meanwhile, we idolize people who are famous for being famous. Reality TV stars, social media influencers, and self-proclaimed gurus who haven't contributed much beyond building a personal brand are held up as aspirational figures. They command attention and wealth, reinforcing the idea that visibility is more important than substance. Many of these influencers openly perform a kind of calculated stupidity, oversimplifying everything, leaning into outrageous or goofy personas, because it's profitable. When the highest rewards go to those who contribute the least in terms of knowledge or insight, it sends a dangerous message. Why bother learning or creating something real when you can get more clout by goofing off online? The ultimate cost of all this is that real problems become nearly impossible to solve. The challenges we face, climate change, public health crises, social inequality, technological disruption, are complex and require informed, nuanced solutions. But our society is, in a sense, losing the capacity to deal with complexity. Constructive public debate is replaced by shouting matches or clickbait rumors. Scientific facts get drowned out by viral misinformation that spreads faster than truth ever could. Indeed, false news on social media travels significantly faster and farther than true news, research has found, because it is often designed to be more emotionally engaging and shareable. In such an environment, wise policymaking becomes exceptionally hard. The people in charge may not understand the intricacies of the issues. Nuance doesn't win elections, after all, and the public doesn't trust the experts who do. Society starts to lose its compass. We navigate by outrage and popularity rather than evidence or ethics. This is how a civilization can slowly decline, not with one cataclysmic event, but through the steady erosion of the intellectual foundations that guide it. The quiet resistance, a return to depth. And yet, despite this grim picture, not everyone is content to drown in shallow waters. Beneath the noise of mainstream culture, a quiet resistance is growing. In fact, a countercurrent seems to be emerging, led often by young people who have recognized the hollowness of constant distraction. They are beginning to push back against the shallowness, the hyperstimulation, and the digital overwhelm. How? By deliberately choosing depth over dopamine. One sign of this pushback is the rise of the digital minimalism movement. Tired of being manipulated by algorithms, a segment of millennials and Gen Z are deleting or sharply curtailing their social media use. Some are even trading in their smartphones for dumb phones, basic flip phones with no internet, in order to reclaim their time and attention. According to one report, many young people are deleting their social media accounts, picking up analog hobbies and embracing a more offline life. In fact, Gen Z is the only generation whose social media usage has declined in recent years. Their average time on social platforms has fallen since 2021. Surveys show 3 in 5 Gen Zers say they'd like to be less digitally connected. This is a remarkable reversal. After a decade of ever-increasing online lives, the youngest cohort is cautiously stepping back and seeking balance. They're rediscovering the joys of activities that don't show up on a feed: reading books, crafting, journaling, learning instruments, or just spending time face-to-face without a phone in hand. At the same time, there's evidence that long-form content is making a comeback in certain circles. Take podcasts and online talks. Against all expectations, millions of people, many of them young, are tuning into marathon conversations and lectures that last for hours. For example, technologist Lex Fridman's podcast often runs 2 to 3 hours or more per episode, and it has become one of the most popular tech podcasts in the world. In August 2024, Fridman even released an interview nearly 9 hours long, and listeners stayed engaged. Similarly, other deep dive podcasts, from science discussions to history series, boast loyal audiences who prefer a slow, nuanced exploration to the quick takes on social media. Research confirms that listeners are willing to engage with longer content, especially when they are hungry to learn new things. The success of these podcasts, featuring figures like Sam Harris or Andrew Huberman as mentioned in the original context, shows that there is still an appetite for substance. It's just not as loud as the appetite for memes, but it is there. Education, too, is quietly reinventing itself on the fringes. Outside the mainstream rush for job skills, there's a modest revival of interest in philosophy, critical thinking, and classic literature. Some small colleges and independent programs are doubling down on the liberal arts, marketing themselves as bastions of real education and thinking, not just career training. There's a renewed popularity of ancient wisdom for modern life: the Stoicism of Marcus Aurelius, the ethics of Aristotle, the meditations of Eastern sages, often shared in online communities or book clubs. Even the self-help space has split. While the loudest voices still promise quick productivity hacks, a growing subset of people are seeking older, more reflective practices. They are journaling, meditating, practicing mindfulness, not just to be more productive, but to gain clarity and meaning in a chaotic world. In a time when every second is an opportunity to scroll, choosing to sit with one's own thoughts has become a radical act of rebellion. These changes might not dominate headlines or trending topics, but they represent a hopeful countercurrent. They show that not everyone is content with the shallow status quo. There are those swimming against the stream, proving that depth and thoughtfulness still have value. They may be a minority, but they are a beacon that perhaps the tides can change, that perhaps our culture isn't destined to remain in the shallow end forever. Choosing depth in a shallow world. What can we do? So what can you do when the world around you seems to celebrate the shallow? How can individuals push back against a system that rewards ignorance and instant gratification? The answer isn't to fight noise with more noise or to try to outshout the loudest voices. Instead, it requires choosing a different path, a quieter, more deliberate path grounded in conscious choices. Here are a few approaches, drawn from the ideas above, that anyone can start with. Practice mindful consumption. Pause and ask yourself if you are thinking or just reacting to what you consume. Not every piece of content that grabs your attention deserves it. Make a habit of reading a bit longer than is comfortable, or watching content that challenges you instead of just entertaining you. Choose media that nourishes your mind, not just what stimulates it. Your mind, like your body, becomes what you feed it. Embrace intellectual humility. In a culture obsessed with being confidently ignorant, dare to say, "I don't know," when you truly don't. Trade the false certainty of hot takes for genuine curiosity. Allow your ideas to be questioned. That's where growth comes from. Be willing to feel intellectually uncomfortable. Grappling with new or complex ideas can be challenging, but it's the only way to actually learn and expand your perspective. Curate deeper community. Seek out and cultivate relationships with people who care about meaning, not just memes. Find friends or online groups who enjoy discussing ideas, not just gossip. Create spaces, a book club, a forum, a dinner table conversation, where disagreement is welcomed and thoughtful discussion is the norm. In these circles, depth isn't a liability, it's a shared value. Surrounding yourself with others who strive for understanding will reinforce your own commitment to thinking for yourself. Be unapologetically thoughtful. Resist the pressure to dumb yourself down for the sake of fitting in. If you love science, philosophy, art, whatever it is, don't hide that passion. The world has enough performative ignorance. It needs more people willing to speak the truth and ask real questions. Yes, you might not get as many likes for a complex thought as for a silly selfie, but you'll be staying true to who you are. Authenticity in the pursuit of knowledge is powerful. By living that example, you quietly encourage others to do the same. Ultimately, remember that cultures change one choice at a time. Every time you choose a book over an endless feed, a real conversation over a quick text, or an open mind over a closed echo chamber, you're part of the solution. You won't single-handedly overturn the attention economy, but you will carry the torch of thought in an age of distraction. The glorification of stupidity may be the zeitgeist of the moment, but it doesn't have to be the future. Each of us can help turn the tide by how we live and what we reward in our own lives. It won't be easy. Swimming upstream never is, but it is worthwhile. If enough people choose to value knowledge over noise, questions over clickbait, and wisdom over shallow wins, the culture will shift. Carl Sagan's plea from 1995 still echoes today. Do not let society make ignorance cool. Instead, let's make thinking aspirational again. The process starts quietly, maybe invisibly at first, in private choices and small circles. But those are the seeds of larger change. A society is, after all, a collection of individuals. By choosing depth in our own lives, we set an example, to our peers, to the next generation, that being awake and informed is something to be proud of, not ashamed. In the end, the shallow may grab quick victories of attention, but a civilization cannot sustain itself on sound bites and spectacle. We need people who are willing to dive deep, even when the world tells them to stay shallow. We need steady lights in the darkness of information overload. By being one of those lights, however small, you make a difference. As more join in, that quiet illumination grows. And maybe, just maybe, we'll wake up from this cultural fog and remember that thinking deeply is a virtue, not a liability. The future can belong to the wise and the curious, if we choose to make it so, one mindful decision at a time. At Neuromystique, we don't just chase ideas, we interrogate the hidden forces shaping how we think, feel, and live. What you've just heard isn't a critique of culture for the sake of criticism. It's an invitation to wake up, to reclaim your attention, to fight, not with noise, but with depth. If this message resonated with you, you're already part of a quiet uprising, one that values clarity over chaos, meaning over metrics, and wisdom over visibility. This channel exists to serve that purpose, to go deeper, to question harder, and to speak truth in a world that often rewards illusion. So if you're tired of the shallow, if you're hungry for ideas that challenge, provoke, and awaken, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Neuromystique. Join the thinkers. Stay awake. And above all, choose to think.